Hi. All too often, I'm hearing the same type of feedback from local business owners. I'm paying for SEO. I'm seeing fancy reports every month that mean nothing, and I'm not getting leads. So, if this resonates to you, I would want to break down both sides. I want to look at from the agency side, how were you discerning and choosing this agency to partner with? So that's one side of it. Next, I want to look at your side of things. Nobody wants to put blame on the business owner, of course, but I do want to emphasize that doing good SEO actually requires feedback from you and follow through from you, as well as the collaboration. So let's break it down. Um, First, I'll start with what we need from your end, because it's important for us to gain a good understanding of your brand messaging, the do's and the don'ts, how to position you to capitalize on your strengths so that we can fill that positioning gap, which AI systems and search engines like to see. What is that unique perspective that you have, the unique experience? So, all of this uniqueness is really going to be beneficial for the positioning of your brand. So, if your agency is able to collect all this brand messaging, and if they're able to identify, what is a priority for your business this quarter, next quarter, etc. So having a full view of, what does the seasonality look like, all of these things. So make sure you're being as thorough as possible. And I have been blessed with my clients that I work with. They are so open and transparent. The feedback that I get from them on the SEO initiatives, and then also just rolling out the priorities. I don't have to second guess, what am I going to be planning for this quarter, anything like that. It's very clear. And so I think oftentimes what happens when, and that's different because I'm doing this on the consulting side. So during my whole process of onboarding, I'm ironing out the expectations for both parties. So I can't really speak to what agencies are doing on their sales calls or the onboarding process, but I can say, what I'm hearing from business owners that have been burned by agencies is, you know, just the lack of communication between parties. Yeah, there's some shady businesses out there that aren't, really looking out for your best interest. So I think the first part on your end is the discernment. And that can be really hard because there's so much content out there. There's so many agencies out there. They do the fancy decks, they do the fancy sales call. But after that, after they lock you in to a 12-month contract or whatever, like, I can't really speak to all of that, holding them accountable, etc. Um, I think from your end, it is important to look at that, and whether it's word of mouth or just maybe doing a trial run or something like that, maybe a shorter term contract, instead of getting stuck in a long term contract when you are not getting results. So that's the discernment part of it. Next, I'm going to get into the collaboration part of it. Like I mentioned, like onboarding calls, you should be able to gain a good idea in the onboarding process. If they send you something to fill out, make sure you're just being thorough with it. All too often, I see just a lack of follow through, and whether it's maybe the formatting or the delivery. I try to test out different formats because I have found that sometimes if I send over a sheet to a doctor or to somebody, they're not even going to look at it. They're going to open it up and be like, what is this? And just not even follow through. And so, doing different things. And sometimes I just like walk through it. And I find that that's really helpful. Just like walking through on a call, or if it's in person, getting all this information, getting to know you and your style and, the do's and the don'ts, the bread and butter service, what do we want to prioritize this quarter versus that quarter? Just really understanding the seasonality side of it. So that can all be done in kind of the onboarding process, but also getting the feedback too. When we're publishing content and keeping the workflow moving, if we have to wait for approvals on your end, or if there's something holding us up from doing our job, it might be beneficial for you to then offload that to somebody internal, maybe have a front desk person or something go through the content and approve everything if you trust that person. Also, just getting feedback on the quality of the leads. This is another piece of it. I like to have very open and transparent communication with my clients. And I think it is important for us to hear, what's working, what's not, when to pivot, things like that. And that's where just the communication from your end is going to really help. And I think it also adds a layer of accountability too for the SEO agency or anything like that. The final piece is, are you following through with our recommendations? So oftentimes with business owners, local businesses, Google Business Profile reviews and, getting listings, maybe they're paid, or some offer free, but like BBB accredited, or BBB A plus rated, is going to be really valuable for local businesses, not only from the trust standpoint of the user, but also the AI systems and Google. So Google likes to see all the consistency and the different reviews. So all of these pieces really come into play. And unfortunately, a lot of that is something that you control unless you're able to bring someone in-house that we can collaborate with. We can make the recommendations, like we need to get you on this listing. But sometimes, it is paid or whatever. Angie, I heard, is just like a pain in the butt. But, the AI systems are like, and Google ranks those sites. So if you are findable on those listings, that is going to be a plus for you. So I would just make sure, and like, I know that I've said it and I've heard, other businesses say like, oh, well, my agency told me to get the reviews, but I found the difference in my approach that actually impacted their response was I'm explaining why. And that was like, I can't believe that the agency would make a recommendation but wouldn't explain why. And maybe that's a common thing. But whenever I give the recommendation, okay, you're running LSA ads? Okay, you need to get consistent reviews. If you're going to do that, like, you need to first have reviews, period, on your Google Business Profile. But are you getting consistent flow of positive reviews? And consistent flow doesn't mean like a ton of reviews. It just means a steady, so like it could be, a small number, but consistent incoming reviews is a signal. So this directly is impacting your ranking performance on LSA ads specifically. And then going back to Google Maps, organic rankings, reviews matter. And that is one of the top ranking factors, as is the keyword in the business name. And, I'll be transparent sometimes, telling the client, well, I'm looking at all the other dental practices in the area, they literally all have dental implants somewhere in the business name, or dentist or something is in the business name. So if you don't have that, you are missing that opportunity to compete. Um, but there's a huge risk. I mean, like, I would not recommend like spamming. All right, now everyone's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, she's recommending this black hat move." But I'm just being transparent that anyone that works in local SEO, you know, there are businesses that have the SEO driven keyword in the business name, and that's just the way it is right now. And what the client needs to be aware of is, if you change the business name, sometimes that triggers a re-verification. So I would just be cautious, and maybe if you're just building out your practice for the first time, maybe it's a good opportunity. If you're going to build it out, just make sure you add that keyword, and then you're setting it up that way. But yeah, we'd never recommend just like, oh, just change the business name like right away. Like, I make sure the client knows there is a risk. But oftentimes, like, I'm coming into a campaign where it's like they just flat out don't have visibility. So it's like, okay, well, no one's really finding you yet. You don't have reviews, and you aren't getting found yet. So like, if you want to risk it, like, you can try including that, and like, make it look not spammy, please. Like, just include it in a way where it looks like more natural, and like, you know, dental clinic, whatever, Chicago, and then your like pipe business name. Like, yeah, I mean, you can get creative, but that covers the part on your end. So I would just say one of the biggest things that I see, you know, I'm hearing the frustration, like, it's valid, but also there is that piece where we do need the communication, and we do need the collaboration, and whatever, you know, whatever flow that looks like for you, like whether it's like, okay, we'll meet every quarter, we'll meet every month, and just cover like what went well and what needs improvement, and like looking at the actual report together. I think that can be huge. And um, even though reports can look daunting, I think having an SEO person that really understands the data and can break it out in a way that makes sense, that will be nothing but insightful for you and your business. And I mean, the business is most likely like your baby. Like, you want to do what you can to better understand what's happening. And if Google Organic is going to be, you know, really important in accomplishing these goals and producing leads for you, then, you know, taking these baby steps to kind of understand. And you don't have to do it all at one time. I think you can maybe like piece it out. You know, today we're going to cover this category of the business. We're going to hone in on how are these topics doing on Google? Are we getting clicks? And now I'm going to go into from the agency side. So there's a lot we can break out with this, I think. First, okay, what we need from an agency is, well, trust, a trusted relationship, accountability, and we need results. So I think we can break it down a little bit. So first, if you were able to discern, okay, it's a trusted agency, I see all the reviews from everyone, you know, maybe you heard it from word of mouth, and that's huge. I would say word of mouth is really great. Like, there's, you know, different groups for roofers and things like that. Like, what company did they use that actually is, you know, trustworthy and giving them results? I think go with the word of mouth, like, if you can. If you're coming into this and you don't really have those other kind of partnerships around you and you don't really know where to start, you can go on different forums. I know Reddit is huge, but it is scary because if you're just Googling, best digital marketer in X area, you're going to see the top agencies that have the money to put into their marketing. Oftentimes you're not seeing the the consultants or people that are putting money into their own marketing. Usually the smaller agencies and things like that are more focused on the delivery for their clients, they're not putting the money back into their own brand. So that's kind of the part of that. So you are getting exposed to, like, if you're just searching, you're going to see these monoliths that they have this down and they're going to get you into a long-term contract. So those can be a little bit more, daunting, because it's like, okay, I'm just going to sign this contract with somebody that I haven't tested out before. Like, if there's any way to get a short-term contract with opportunity to extend, I think that would be great. If you're able to get that in your deal, fine. Because some top agencies that have a full service agency, whether you need web design or whatever, I think also just a network of consultants can actually do that themselves as well. I know on my end, I have consultants for every business need, whether it's creative, copy, paid ads, social media, UX. Like, I have it covered just through my network. And so I think, there's kind of that part of it. But going back to, like, discerning a trusted agency, word of mouth is going to be great if you can find somebody that had a great experience. But also from the agency, I would go through the reviews, because if they are burning people, you will most likely see it on Yelp or Google. So do a little bit of background research, and if you see, positive reviews, you can even ask AI too, like, who is trusted in my area or whatever, or for my specific industry, who's, like, got that niche. Yeah, I think just doing a little bit of research, but yeah, definitely, knowing someone that had a positive experience is going to be really great to go with them. Next, so how do you hold your agency accountable? I would say if this agency is, the thing to look at is hammering out what are the KPIs. Knowing the KPIs that they're going to be measuring for you. You want to have ownership over this data, first of all, and you want to measure on your own. And I'm sure you all have a pulse on that. Like, are the leads coming in? Are we getting the calls? As long as you can figure out your attribution and things like that, like figuring out what came from Google, what came from maps, what came from ads. But the KPIs, knowing what this agency is going to measure, because sometimes these are superficial metrics. If they're just building a bunch of blogs that aren't doing anything for your actual lead generation, they're just tracking clicks. Oh, we got you to 100 clicks this month. Like, okay, if those clicks are coming from outside of your DMA and from only top of funnel, meaning, question-based queries, which are good, depending on the intent behind it. Yeah, I think it's really important to know and hammer that out before you lock into anything. And if they're giving you, like, we're going to, triple your calls, whatever. If your calls are starting at 0 from organic, then okay. I mean, that's great if they can increase your calls. That's really great. But yeah, so iron that out. Make sure that you know yourself. What do I have to measure to know that SEO is working? Also, if you have, I mean, every agency is going to tell you like it takes at least 3 months to see the results. So SEO is more of a slow burn, whereas ads, you put in money into ads, you pay to play, but once you stop the payments, your ads aren't going to be running anymore. You're not going to be pulling in the ads traffic. Whereas Google organic content and organic, SEO is actually going to compound with time. And, you know, if you don't see results right away, it's because it does take time. But again, going back to the KPIs, for a company that isn't currently ranking for anything valuable yet, the first phase of SEO, we're going to have to look at the pre-funnel, is what I call it. The pre-funnel KPIs. So that's the appearance on Google. So before we can start driving the clicks, we have to look at, are you ranking? Like, do you have technical issues on your site that's preventing these pages from being served? Okay, so first things first, let's get you ranking on Google. Then let's monitor the positioning. So as you gain new rank, you're going to see some positions starting at like 90. Okay, well, that's very far from page 1. So the first phase of KPIs that we're tracking is going to be the pre-funnel. So positions, impressions, these are very pre-funnel stages where it's not going to be driving any it's not going to be driving any calls, because if they don't see you on page 1, they're not clicking in yet. So this all has to take some time. So if you're able to get an agency that is able to showcase this over time and show you, okay, the SEO is working, we can see you're moving up to page 1 for AC repair in whatever city. And once your position gets to page 1, you will start to see the clicks. Okay? So as position gets closer to 1, your click-through rate is going to improve. As we see click-through rate improving, that's when you'll start seeing behavior metrics on the site. Are we seeing clicks to call? Are we seeing the calls come in? And how are you tracking that? Do you have a call rail installed? So ironing that out with your KPI discussion with the agency. And filling out the forms. Are they chatting with the chat bot on your site? Things like that. Those are the engagement metrics that are going to matter, because it's going to show, oh, these users were really interested in talking to me and getting to know me, what my services are, and how I can provide that. So that's just like kind of the expectation. So your agency should be able to set expectations that are realistic. And, so that you're not sitting there twirling your thumbs like, okay, well, I launched SEO last month. Why am I not getting the calls? So you do have to understand that it takes time and it requires a little bit of patience. But if you are able to hop on the monthly call, you can look at the progress. You can see like, oh, we actually gained all these new rankings. So we never ranked for this before in all the months prior. But all of a sudden, now we're on page 2 for AC repair, HVAC repair. AC stopped working. So if we're showing that in our reports, so that is like phenomenal. Okay. And then it also helps you understand, the customer demand in which area. Like some, locations may have more need for ductless systems, or, so it gets kind of interesting seeing the differences when you do break out the data like that. Okay, so next, is just, the results. So if your agency that you've had them for a year and you don't have results, okay, I think I think at that point, yeah, you have to get on a call and figure out what is going on, or just cancel. If it's been a year and you're not seeing results. But it also comes back to the other areas of communication from your end. Are you responding to their emails? Because sometimes you see that agencies will get ghosted by the person that, partnered with them. And, partnership requires a little bit of work from both ends. Yes, we're doing the heavy lifting, but we do require some feedback. And it's really nice when we are getting, engagement on your end, because we're able to show this is what we did. But hey, what if it's not a priority for you to focus on ductless systems? What if that's outside your scope or whatever? And then we're like, okay, well, there was misalignment. We need to figure out what you do want us to prioritize. So having that open communication is going to be key. And it also produces more accountability on the agency side. Just when I'm dealing with customers, when I'm getting more engagement, it just automatically adds that motivation to get the results. Because when you feel like you've been ghosted, you're like, well, I don't really have a clear idea of what's going on their end. Like, you feel like you're kind of swimming in the dark. Like, okay, well, the other agency before they came to me had all these pages listed. I'm hoping that was scoped out accurately, so like all too often, like I can speak from many years of experience where, maybe there was a former agency involved and then they built out a million blogs, a million topics covering metal roofing. When you don't do metal roofing, you have a million service area pages way outside your target area. Like, there's so many issues that can go wrong, and when there's not clear communication, it makes it difficult to do quality work. So that is, basically everything that I want to say about that topic. So if you got anything valuable from this, like and subscribe. And if you need help with your SEO, I'm your gal. So just let me know in the comments. If you have a domain you want me to scope out, I'm happy to do any free scoping. It's just like part of my process when getting a new client. I dive into all areas of SEO, like what's happening right now, what areas would you want to prioritize. So you can get that for free if you do want me to scope out what your current agency is doing. And you can always share those findings with them and see what they think. Not to throw anyone under the bus, but to promote collaboration and discussion. So thank you for watching. Bye now.